my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall continue to follow me all the days of this protracted experience of death, and I will dwell in the house of the most superintelligent, power, source, and force of love and creation forever. What's happening? Benton here. The storm is arriving, so they say. -11 on the dashboard. Truck's doing fine. I went ahead and stopped for fuel. What was that? 66 miles ago yesterday. Went ahead and threw in another bottle of the anti-gel just in case. And wasted, well, I won't say wasted, but I spent $50 in points off of my fuel card, my Love's reward card for wheel chocks. Because apparently some of these freight liners, if you chalk the wheels and leave the air brakes released, meaning the truck can roll, then the engine can run all night. Did not work on this truck. Guess it doesn't really matter. The block heater is sufficient. The heater starts out doing really good. You know, actually, I blame this on the computer systems. I think what happens is if I had direct control of the temperature, I think it would probably stay hot. You know, probably somebody burned the truck down. You know, some bozo had some flammable material near near an exhaust vent somewhere, burned themselves up, and they probably had a big judgment. So that's people ruin everything, but I think if I could actually control the temperature, it'd be fine. But in the middle of the night, it gets a little chilly when it's that cold. But I turned on the microwave to drain enough battery to start, so the truck would automatically start and run for 2 hours to charge the battery. And that warmed up the engine just enough to get a little bit of heat going. Just truck driving things, add that to the list of 20,000 reasons why most people would never do this job. Oh, wait a minute. We forgot to turn the live chat off. Hang on. Oh, man, now there's two of us. Hang on. We got to fix all this. All right, we should be good now. My apologies. As far as the extreme cold affecting fuel economy, we're at the computer estimates 3.7 miles per gallon. I wonder if that includes the 2 hours of idling overnight, though. I guess it probably does. It would have to, I think. Yeah, because it dropped my miles per hour down also to 18 on average. So yeah. Been doing some exercises for my shoulder, man. That fucker hurts. Didn't hurt that bad. These exercises, it's that good pain, you know. That's a kicking right about now. But yeah, where I'm delivering, general vicinity of Boston, Massachusetts. Of course, I think I've got, well, that's not even true. I've got a delivery. I'm on my way to a delivery in Wisconsin, 84 more miles. And then picking up a load in Wisconsin. That's got two deliveries, one in West Virginia, one in Massachusetts. I don't know how that's going to affect things. The roads in West Virginia, they don't do the best job, in my experience, of keeping the roads clear in the winter weather. So that may be a slow go, a slow crawl type of situation. Although I don't know, you know, who knows? I might get lucky and get the snow if it. But then Boston, I think it's like up to 20 inches. I think so, but these weather people have gotten so hyperbolic. I cut that in half, so I'd say max, probably looking at 10 inches max. But who knows? And generally, the roads are pretty well treated and plowed, so not too worried about that. More worried about where to park, and then, you know, how possible will it even be to make these deliveries? And this company seems to understand not to try to push things. They've already told me just, you know, drive careful, and if we have to reschedule the deliveries, we'll reschedule the deliveries. I'm pretty sure they trust me by now to, you know, I don't stop in the winter weather unless I have to. So we'll see. Because where I can actually park in relation to this second delivery, the last delivery, it's going to be like 100 miles away, I want to say. So who knows? We shall see. Fun stuff. Fun stuff. Pretty much anybody can do this job for the easier, more mundane parts. Then we start getting into you know, separating you know, who's willing to put out and get the job done versus people who really only want to work when things are in their favor. Which I look, I don't begrudge anybody that. if that's how they roll. I don't give a fuck other than how it reflects on me, right? Shit, I forgot to turn the heater off in the back. I'm sure I'm roasting all of my nutritional supplements right about now. Finally broke down and bought a shelving. I bought like one of those shitty plastic, 3 shelf deals they sell at Walmart near the all the Rubbermaid and the Stairlight containers and all that stuff. So I had the totes. There we go. I had a big tote that almost, it almost perfectly fit in the old hatchback area of the Versa, but it's gotten all tore up, and I had all my egg drink accessories and my nutritional supplements just like in some like a random shoe box and like a bunch of Amazon boxes kind of arranged, and it worked all right, but the setup will be better. I destroy shit though, so at some point I'll end up destroying this little shitty $20 plastic shelf. So, but it'll work for a couple of months, I'm sure. Damn, am I breaking up or am I just not interesting? Zero, done zeroed them out. Wow. Am I feeding back? Shit. Well, I've talked to myself before. It won't be the first time. I might have lost everybody when I dropped off the stream. They said, "Oh, look at this boomer." Especially if these are millennials or, God forbid, Gen Z. I don't. If they'll even listen to a boomer in the first place, once there starts being technical difficulties, I wouldn't blame them for abandoning ship myself. But there's always a possibility we're not connected to the network. But oh well. My icon's vibrating. That's got to mean something, right? I'm kind of looking forward to the zero, where I go live and it's zero, and it's more or less stays on zero. So, huh. Oh yeah, I think it is Verizon. I'm gonna switch to AT&T and see what happens. Should be on AT&T now, I think. Of course, now it's showing shitty. Or I don't know. On the phone, I don't know. Does it? Since I have 2 networks and 2 SIMs, I don't know how that works. So we'll hope we can be heard. Shout out to Replay Crew, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know that I have any rants for you. I can always work on my diction and enunciation. Hot coffee in a proper copper coffee pot. She sells seashells by the seashore. Yeah, I'm pretty impressed with this truck in the cold weather. I know I've mentioned that already, but she fired right up. Didn't take too long to get to a normal operating temperature once I rolled out. Mighty fine, mighty fine. Yeah, that was. I think I'd rather have my $50 worth of points back though, off of my Love's reward card. Although it is good to have wheel chocks just in case. Hypothetically, I'm supposed to know how to do an air brake test, and on an automatic that would involve you have to have wheel chocks to properly do that on an automatic. But I actually used to do an air brake test on every pre-trip, but once I started driving early in the morning, it's too fucking loud at the truck stop to be doing an air brake test at 2 a.m. And now I don't remember how to do it. I'd have to watch a YouTube video. I could probably figure it out, but I'd need to watch a video on it. I wonder, I felt like we were losing a little traction there. I'm going through around a slight curve. I don't know. Felt a little funky. A bit of a headache too. Still drinking my coffee. Maybe that's got something to do with it. I guess we're hanging out. I don't really know as far as any sort of rant. And I can always rant and rave about economics, but I'm just kind of over it. -12 now on the dash. Well, I'll have to trust that my audio's good. This is the drawback of no chat, right? One of the drawbacks. Well, we are drinking the fuel. I can tell you that. Looking at where the fuel gauge is. Oh, we're almost to Madison, Wisconsin. I'm thinking about changing my morning routine around and having my fruit first and then doing my 2 egg drinks later in the day if I can. I'm going to have to find some decent ways to keep the egg drinks hot, though. I've heard good things about all that Yeti brand as far as actually keeping things hot or cold. And I wouldn't mind spending a little more if I know it's going to work. This is just this is supposed to be an insulated bottle from Walmart, but I preheat it with hot water, and the outside of it more or less instantaneously gets warm. So it's like, yeah, it's not really very well insulated. Of course, it is fucking cold, but yeah. See, this is already warm. It's not even hot. I don't think it's been maybe an hour and a half since I made this drink. Mm, it's a little hot now that I get whatever's on the top drank. A little bit warm. Shout out to Millennial Steam Channel. Although it's funny when he brings up the so-called administration, the president. He seems to still be trapped in this idea that changing the administration makes any bit of difference whatsoever. But all of this cost of living stuff was going on under the so-called prior administration. It's not like rents hadn't skyrocketed, right? So I don't see any hope. There is no hope. This is what it is. It's funny looking at truck driving because these bozos that cover truck driving on YouTube seem to think that a lot of them are maybe owner operators, and I think there's a lady that dispatches because she has her own a few. I guess she probably owns a few trucks, and she does regular videos, sort of just covering the freight rates around the country, and because it's so cyclical historically, and because the rates have been depressed for like 4 years now, since like 2022. I think you had like a year and a half to 2 years during COVID when they were real good. Oh, did I miss my turn? I missed my fucking turn. Wow. Motherfucker. Really? God damn. I should have noticed. I just didn't notice. Fuck me. Hang on. Let me see what they're doing to me on my. Oh, they're making me go all kind of crazy ways to turn around. Surely I can. Motherfucker. I think I've missed this before. I think we're fucked. I don't think there's any exits. I think it's like 10 miles to the next exit, too. Fuck. Yep. Wow. That sucks. I can't even blame being distracted. It's just, I think in my mind, I just didn't realize. There's a lot of times in trucking, you just get on the interstate and you're just on the fucking interstate for hours. Wow, what a bozo. I still got plenty of, this is why we leave early, folks. And I've got a window, but they don't, and you never know. Sometimes the information I have says they start receiving at 7 a.m. And then sometimes if I get there at 6, somebody's there who will unload me. And then sometimes you get there at 7 and they're like, yeah, nobody gets here till 8. There's always that one person who's there. And they're like, yeah, whoever's, the shipping manager or whatever won't be here till 8. But this is why I leave early, because I'm still going to be 30 minutes early, assuming I don't fuck up and miss any more turns. I will say I do this probably a little more often than your average driver. Yeah. But I see what the mistake I made was once I got onto the first interstate, I just started talking and I didn't even bother to look back at my GPS to see if I was going to be getting onto a different interstate. Motherfucker. But yeah, I'm almost certain I've done this exact fucking boner before. So there's a plus 15 minutes. And I love there's a car coming up behind who's just going to perfectly catch up to me and follow me. They'll just perfectly catch me through the series of interchanges. That's their job. They're hanging way back. I'll have one car on top of me while I try to figure out which lanes to be in. Oh, here's a few more coming to join the party. All right, bear with me. I need to make sure we don't fuck up again. And then once I get back on the correct road, I got to make sure I'm not, because it gave me two different ways to get back on route. So I chose the alternate. So now then I got to go make sure I didn't choose an alternate route all the way to the delivery, which might not be ideal. But it's funny, man. Like I say, this is just, it's never a real realm. It's just looking at my mirror and looking at the mileage to where I need to start making turns. It's just like, oh, these cars are just, and now more are coming. They're just all magically going to be on top of me. You know, right when it's going to be, I'm not going to know which lanes to be in. It's already happening. They're already starting to cut me off on the right because new lanes are appearing. You know, of course, they'll do anything to avoid passing me on the left. And of course, as predicted, the two cars that have been hanging back the whole time, one of them's caught me. It's just expect the accepted, right? Hilarious. And then, the mentality of people, hey, there's one big rig on the road. Let's go snuggle up to it. And there's no traffic. And it's a 5 a.m. Saturday morning before a big storm. And it's -10, So you already know, really, you're only people who have to be out right now are out. And maybe a few drunks coming home. This is Wisconsin, after all, the drunkest state. South 151, it says. Shockingly, most of the cars have gotten away from me now. Perhaps I will be able to make some of these turns unmolested. That's something else I've noticed when I start talking about it. It's like they're less likely to do it. Almost to sort of fly in the face of the point I'm making. I think we're adding 15 minutes, most likely, to the whole trip here. Could be worse. Reminds me of famously that time I took a left instead of a right out of a truck stop and immediately added like 30 miles just because there's just nowhere to turn around. It's like, oh, immediate plus 30 miles to the trip. Can't do nothing. Oops. I hate these signs, man, these electronic signs. It's too cold for hot headed driving. Like, yeah, you know what? I'm really not mad, but that sign ain't helping. That's kind of annoying. Talk to like we're children. I mean, have y'all noticed how much of society is just being talked to like I'm a child or you're a child? It's like, yeah, we're not children. All right, in 4.4 miles, I believe we'll be where we were supposed to be in the first place. That's what it looks like. Damn, I must have forgot to use the bathroom before I left. Already got to go. Jeez. Jeez. Yeah, these egg yolk drinks aren't hitting like they used to. I'm starting to think I was so nutrient deprived for so long because of my illnesses, and there's so much nutrition in the egg yolks that my body was just craving them for so long. I think that's my body's finally starting to tell me, like, all right, man, thanks for the eggs, but I'm all good. We're all good for at least for now. Might just start doing one. I'm already in half. I was doing, I think overall it was like 18 egg yolks a day, but then sometimes I can get up to 24. So I know I cut back to 12 from 24. So that was 4 drinks. And I really don't have time to do 4 a day while I'm truck driving anyway, but I might just stick with the one in the morning. Just do one instead of two in the morning. And if I can figure out a way to keep it, and again, I don't need help. I don't need suggestions on how to keep it warm. I just mean me actually getting my hands on whatever I would need to use for my purposes to make that happen. You know, make both drinks in the morning and then, you know, have the second one way later in the day. There's a wrecker out there with a truck. Oh shit! See, you trying to miss your exit again, buddy? See that? See how quickly it happens? All right, 12 west. There we go. This is the road we missed 15 minutes ago or whatever it was. Yep, there's the heavy wrecker. I bet his shit froze up. When the weather gets like this, it's not a guarantee, but most of the rigs on the side are going to be, they froze up. And some drivers will keep fuel filters they'll keep them in the cab, you know, so they're a little warm. They're warmed up already, and or they'll put fuel in them, and then, of course, if their truck ain't running, how are they going to warm them up? So I don't know that anybody's keeping fuel filters with fuel already in them. See what I mean? I think that's pretty much what ends up happening. They'll tow it to a shop somewhere, a heated shop, and then, you know, plug it into a fucking block heater probably and change the fuel filter. Prime it with some gas, some fuel, diesel fuel. Of course, the DEF can freeze up too, but I haven't ran into that, fortunately. That's really the only reason I wanted to run the engine last night, if possible. It's like, well, I ain't too worried about the fuel. I'm more worried about the DEF freezing up. And then the pump, sometimes you can't get DEF at the pump because the pump's froze up. That happened to me a couple days ago, or before I took my days off. All right, let me get a new route here. I want to make sure we're on the proper route. All right, hang on. I'm going to redo the deal here. Although we're getting to be in the boonies enough, there's probably just only one way to get there. Yeah. Now we're in city driving, and we're the pace setter, of course. Like, dude, I'm fucking around with my GPS. I don't know where the fuck I am. Why y'all following me? Well, we're followers. That's why. That's what we do. We follow. Yep. Yeah, you do. Not you, the listener. Yeah, they do. I'm going 45 out here trying to figure out where to go. You know, most of them, if they're on their way to work right now, you know, they're pissed off having to go to work. I read about some big Amazon warehouse they're building in upstate New York near Albany. And they're talking about 3.2 million square feet. And, you know, robotics, but then 750 employees, they said. I think 750 full time, and then I guess maybe some seasonal and part time, if I read that correctly. But apparently, parts of the facility are more or less fully automated, from what I understand. Or, of course, Amazon's known to just straight up lie about that, so who knows? It's funny because there's like a wetlands area where this is the Wisconsin Dells area. So off to the right, I can see there's kind of a little swampy area, like a wetlands. It's like, I wonder how that works. When, that thing gets a hard freeze every year, I'm sure, every winter. I don't know. I'm not an ecologist. There's a pretty nice looking super center. Hypothetically, I could cruise in there, but I ain't gonna fuck with that right now. Turnkey homes available at 4.75%, it says. Damn. Forgot I needed to go to the bathroom. I look over and I'm like, that shoulder would have been a perfect place to stop. Except I waited too long and now it's ending. Motherfucker. Maybe the lion's mane hasn't kicked in yet. Then I heard a little bit of Brett Favre, the retired football player. I guess he's got Parkinson's. Just recently diagnosed within whatever period of time with Parkinson's. But then I listened to him. It's almost like he's faking it. And I'm not saying he doesn't have Parkinson's, but some of he kind of had the old people speech pattern a little bit. It was like, it just kind of almost sounded like he was acting. But, I mean, who knows? Again, for entertainment purposes only, I identify as a conspiracy theorist. It's, at the level of entertainment, of course. Yeah, we missed our shot. This is all fucked through here. Now I'm going 40 thinking I'm going to be able to pull over somewhere. And we're heavy, of course. Oh, I had a hell of a time getting the damn axles in the right hole yesterday. Fuck, man. I found out I can only weigh one load 4 times before my fuel card says no moss. And uncharacteristically, I was too lazy to get out of the truck because I had no idea that I couldn't reweigh that last time. But so if I'd gotten it in the hole I thought I was getting it in, I think we would have been fine. But turned out I didn't. So we were still overweight on the axles. So I had to fucking go inside. And anytime I've had to go in and get a scale ticket, it's just immediately I'm in 10 deep in a line. I mean, every fucking time. It actually went really fast, though, surprisingly. And then I have this thing that like happens to me where I'm clearly the last one in line, and then the next person comes to get in the line, and they have no idea how to get behind me. It's like, yeah, I understand we're in a store and there's shelving, but it's like, why are you standing next to me? The only time I do that to people is when they're like comically standing, 10 feet away from the person that they're behind. So it's like, bro, I'm not going 10 feet behind you because then now nobody knows where the end of the line is. But so I'm just like, really? You gonna come stand beside me? Like, this is crazy. Too lazy to walk around me. So I moved over in front of him, and then he moved over to where I was. But it's like,
what are we doing, bro? So I moved back in front of him, back where I started. So I guess at least by then, I guess I positioned him properly. He needed my help. Eventually, he got to where he should have been in the first place. Hilariously. Silly humans, man. Silly motherfucking humans. Oh, there's my fruit. Shit, that needs to be up front. Yeah, we're still going half portions. Spent $12 fucking dollars at Walmart on a container to put half a can of apricots in. And it's funny, man, this idea of the money, just people haven't adjusted to what the value of money, man. $20 is just nothing. And in fact, I knew I would just out of convenience, I was going to pay out of pocket for the last time I had to weigh the truck, and a reweigh is $5. And, I think I miscommunicated to the lady or something. I mean, there was it wasn't anybody's fault, but I ended up paying the full fucking price of $14.75. And so once I got back to the truck and realized what I paid, it's like, it's not even worth my time or aggravation. Yeah, I could have went back in and they probably would have gave me my $10, but it's like the value of the money ain't there, man. It's like just not even worth it. Not based on, the amount of money I have and what I earn in a day. Yeah, I can charge it to the company, but they're not, most companies, they default to not paying anything until they get harassed into paying. It's just like, I'm just not interested in that sort of thing. Now, if something happens and I got to pay $100 of my own money, well, yeah, I'm going to get paid, but that's rare anyway. I think I paid like $70 for a fire extinguisher when I first started, and they cash at me the money like within an hour. All right, let's go. Let's go. And I know Wisconsin doesn't give a fuck about the kingpin length. I'm pretty sure you can just drive around Wisconsin with the axles all the way back, but I'm pretty sure Illinois is fairly strict. So I was in Illinois when I was adjusting the axles, and I'm pretty sure I was over the limit for kingpin length to the, wherever on the rear axles of the trailer. I just thought, well, fuck it. If they actually interdict me in this weather, fuck it, they can have it. I'm not even going to think about it. I'm damn sure wasn't going back to the shipper to have the load reworked. Like, fuck that. They catch me, they catch me. All I would have said was, it's not like I'm going to be driving around Chicago. If I was actually trying to drive around the city of Chicago with the axles that far back, yeah, fair enough. But it's like, I'm getting the fuck out of here, man. We're going to Wisconsin where they don't give a fuck. So how about y'all leave me alone?
It's too cold for hot-headed driving. Yeah, it's too early in the morning for smarmy ass motherfucking LED signs too. I ain't stopping you, is it? I never road rage though. I don't know if it's interesting. I am somewhat known for my angry outbursts, but I did so much road raging in my 20s, my teens and my 20s, that at a certain point, uh, I decided just no more road rage. And that was the end of the road rage. Do not engage. Where the fuck are we going? Dodgerville? Oh, Dodgeville. Is this the right exit? 151 South, 18 West. I think we're going 18 West. -10 on the dash, probably because we stopped for a couple of minutes. What is this? In town again? Making me work, man. I'm actually having to look at the GPS here and make sure we're in the proper lanes. Sometimes I see all these interchanges and these roads, and I'm like, this has to be the least efficient way possible to move traffic through here. I'm not sure anybody can do worse based on the amount of just the physical area all this takes up. Primitive and barbaric, in my opinion. Shit. Stoplights, 30 miles an hour. Again, this is why we leave early. Because the GPS does not factor in stoplights either. It just assumes you're going to roll more or less close to the speed limit. All right, exit 47. Oh, it's at 37 miles. Okay. We're good for 40 miles. Liquor Town. Oh, yeah. Wouldn't mind having a drink at times, but it's like, man, it just really doesn't fit into my routine anymore. Between the meals and the supplements and going to sleep and all of that, there's really not any time to work it in. There's no place. I have to like skip a meal. I have to deviate from my routine. All right, here we go. I guess we're leaving town now. 65. Let's go. Good thing I like to drive. Imagine how many people drive trucks for a living for 30 years and hate driving. Oh, damn. So that they must like to hate. Talk about the dead flesh. And then people talk about, the winter storm and here's this idea of, just this, again, word of mouth, conventional wisdom, so-called common sense. People talk about wanting to be down south. And bro, if it's actually going to snow and ice, it's always way worse down south. Always. I'd rather drive in the Northeast if we're talking ice, if we're talking snow and ice. Or really anywhere but the South. Although West Virginia, that's going to be fun, depending on what the roads are like. I've done enough of it not to be worried, but it's just funny like that. I don't remember the roads, but like leaving Virginia and entering West Virginia or vice versa, it's like you can tell. It's like, oh yeah, Virginia is on top of it for the most part, and West Virginia is not on top of it. Now, which one's a so-called blue state and which one's a red state? Isn't that interesting? We're just trying to break stuff down to red states and blue states. And, there's this, that guy that does those Social Security Administration videos, the disability lawyer. I share his content every once in a while. And he referred to Kentucky as a red state. And I thought and somehow I just know off the top of my head, I'm like, well, the governor's a Democrat. That Brashears or whatever the fuck that guy, Andy Brashears or whatever his name is. Like, so I don't know, man. Maybe you could still call it a red state, but hesitate when I would at least stop and start thinking, well, what's up with this? Why is the governor a Democrat? Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I'm not gonna sign off on this thing where it's like, oh, Democrat bad, Republican bad. Now, if you want to start with Democrat bad, Republican bad, now we got something to talk about. But I refuse to exist in a world where it's like, well, Democrat bad, therefore Republican good. It's like, nah, that math don't math. That presupposes that they can't both be bad, and that you're crazy. They're both bad. All politicians at every level are garbage. I mean, that's just anybody that can't figure that out. It's just what smell of garbage do you prefer, right? Which odor do you find less offensive? They both stink, right? Pick your poison. Which one would you prefer to smell? One, I won't even get into smells, but pick one, right? They both smell like garbage. They all work for banks and corporations. During the bailouts, you had a seated congressman, national level congressman, said the banks own the Congress, and he was being serious. I mean, like, what are we even talking about? That's obvious. Again, there's no such thing as common sense. It's obvious to me that that's the case. Well, it ended up being a pretty easy day yesterday. I think I maybe only drove 5 or 6 hours all day, and I was able to go to bed at a reasonable time. And I went to sleep by about 6:30. And then I talk about the living in the truck, man. It's an hour and a half between my Walmart run and, being a little disorganized in the transition from, into this new plastic shelf I bought. It was an hour and a half of just getting shit organized and dealing with the, is the truck going to idle, chalking the wheels and fucking all of that, and trying to manage the, internal temperature of the cab. An hour and a half. Oh, and I paid for parking. Um, so again, back to the value of the money. It's like, yo, it's $20, $18 or whatever. I paid just to not even have to worry about it. It's like, yeah, if I had to make a bet, I would bet, yeah, there'll be free parking. I'll be able to get a spot because I knew I'd get there about 4 p.m. Like, I'm still paid the money ahead of time. It's like, yeah, I'm not rolling in and fucking lot's full and there's nowhere for me to park. Fuck that. But I park based on, can they block me in at night, since I like to leave early in the morning. So I ended up parking in the free spot because sometimes these truck stops, the paid spots, all the paid spots, I'm looking at them and I'm like, somebody could block me in. So I found a free spot where they can't block me in without just really going, blocking in a ton of trucks. Pretty much just make sure there's somebody on, across from me also backed in. That's the best way to do it. You try to, if there's open space and a curb and all of that, half the time I'll wake up and there's 3 deep trucks parallel parked along the curb, Which is funny because, the first row, they got plenty of room. The second row, because you can eyeball it and tell if there's enough room or not. But by the time that second row fills in, again, the pattern has become too strong. And whoever comes last is just like, oh, here's where you park. It's like, yeah, except can't y'all eyeball that and see that now these trucks that are in a spot can't pull out? Like we're all truckers, right? We can all eyeball that and see that now there's not enough room for old Benton to leave. But yeah, I don't give a shit if I wake up and there's 2 deep trucks across from me. I don't give a fuck. As long as I can get out, do whatever you want. I don't care. Same thing with the fuel island. If I roll in at 2 a.m. and everybody's parked at the pumps and they're in there doing whatever they're doing, nobody's getting fuel. It's like, just leave me one fucking lane so I can fuel and get the fuck out of here. That's all I care about. But I'm going to be maybe trying not to get angry if it's like 12 fuel lanes. They're all full. Nobody's pulled up, and like not one island is anybody getting fuel. It's just like, and you can't trust humans. Because I'll pull up sometimes in the middle of the night and I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to do my 30-minute break, or, I'm going to cook some food or whatever. But I'll keep looking out the window, man. And once the other spots start filling up, if I need to, I'll just fucking pull up and then I'll just loop back around and get back in line. It's like you kind of have to have the honor system where it's like, yeah, we all sort of know we're all kind of just parking here because there's nowhere to park. But then whoever comes and fills up the last few spots needs to start understanding, look, we got to leave enough for somebody to actually get fuel. We can't just clog everything up. But humans are either out of it, they don't care, their brain doesn't operate well enough to even understand what I'm talking about. You can't trust them. They can't be trusted to operate in a proper society, right? And so that's why you can't really get mad at people, because it's hard to know, well, is this the person, are you going to end up yelling at Benton, who's just going to be like, well, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I got a brain. I've done things correctly, and who's going to explain why he's not the problem? It's something as simple as, if you've ever pulled up somewhere and you're like, look at how these people are parked, and then you can't park just in your car, and you might think you know who caused the problem, but if you look at it, you're like, well, wait a minute. Everything might have been fine when they got here, and then the shit got fucked up, and the people that fucked it up already left, and then the cars that came later, they had to park based on the shit already being all fucked up. So it's not even always clear who even caused the problem in the first place. Sometimes all you need is one bozo to fuck up, and it just ruins it for everybody. And then they leave, and it's chaos, and now everybody's mad at each other, and the one who started the chaos ain't even around anymore. Did you talk to the criminal? Well, no. Well, please do. Am I going to Iowa? I don't think I'm going to Iowa. No, but I guess if you keep going, you go to Iowa. So I almost took the alternate route to get here, because I could have gone to some different truck stops. But then I was like, well, wait a minute. I'm not going to motherfucking Iowa to go to where I'm going in Wisconsin. That'd be crazy. Although the mileage wasn't that much different. So I guess there's really no reason to go to Iowa. Oh yeah, earlier before, maybe even before I realized I took the wrong route, that the freight rates being depressed. And so because it's cyclical historically, people just assume the rates are going to, air quotes, recover, meaning like, okay, right now they're in the toilet. So at some point they're going to go back to, a stable price higher than what they are now. But the reality is they could stay depressed forever, or they could go lower. And that's what we're seeing is in the short run. And a lot of these people just don't understand markets. And I'm not saying I do. I'm just saying What I've observed of my ability to understand markets is just beyond your average person. I'm talking about your average bozo who doesn't understand markets at all. I have some understanding of markets, not a lot, but it's like, yeah, the fact that historically, if you look at what's happened in the last 4 years, there would be a quote recovery. I understand, but there's no guarantee of that. That's not how markets work. It's like, yeah, there's a precedent right up until there's a new precedent, you know. And so this could be the establishment of just this is what it is. And the thing is, if the market understands that the driver is going to exit the industry, the moment the market can be sure of that, it will price in that there's no more. It just prices it in. It stops paying a high enough rate to also pay for a driver. That's what markets do. This idea of free market economics, this idea that, well, the market perfectly adjusts, and that is true in a way, right? So if my hunch is correct and the markets have already priced in the fact that at some point in the future there's just not going to be a driver for a lot of this long haul stuff, well, the rates can't recover. So yeah, maybe there is going to be somebody driving them for the next 10 years. That means for the next 10 years, the rates will not recover. It's not going to happen. And it doesn't matter. People say, oh, well, capacity is exiting the industry. The government's cracking down. Well, what if the government understands, because of the supercomputers and the algorithms and, whatever in conjunction with the markets, whatever is also operating the so-called economy, what if that understands that in the short run, you're going to have to prop this stuff up. And part of the way to prop it up is, okay, well, if demand is way down from what I see, demand is way down. Some of these, I'm telling you, man, there's just less traffic in overall. A lot of the truck stops are way less busy than before, although some of them are jumping. A lot of them are ghost towns. And, again, of course, it's seasonal, so this is the slowest time of the year. Of course it is. Meanwhile, the so-called busiest time of the year, Christmas, was not that busy. And hang on, we're actually catching up to a car, so I'm going to go ahead and pass them. You never know when I might wake them up. I might start speeding up. See if I can get around them. Arizona? No, that can't be. No, it's Wisconsin. I just looked at it wrong. They don't look anything alike. I couldn't quite see it well enough. Really? Now you're going to pass me? Like, what is this? Oh, they're probably making a turn. Actually, this is like interstate quality road, but it's it's not controlled access. Anyway, they're probably drunk. Also, so my opinion is, I don't think the rates are ever going to quote recover, whatever that. I don't think that even has a meaning. That only has a meaning in a historical context. And see, this is where people's logic fails them, and this is where people prove that they're not strategic thinkers, is because they're failing to account for the reality that it's possible that it could be a new paradigm. To factor in that the rates have to recover. It's like, no, they don't. I understand that historically they've recovered. That doesn't mean they have to recover. That's not a guarantee. Just because that's been the case historically, that's not guaranteed. And this, I think, ties back to this idea of what people think America is, and they seem to believe that they're just sort of entitled to a certain economic factors, a certain way of living, a certain income. It's like there's no guarantee that trucking is going to continue to exist in the way it's existed in the past. There's just no, and in fact, I would argue that to even assume that is folly. And it seems to me like post pandemic, it is and I'm saying this sort of sarcastically or sardonically, it is a brave new world in a lot of ways post pandemic, in my view. Right. So you have a lot of people who want to view the idea of the government cracking down on enforcement and all of these, people who aren't supposed to be driving trucks. And the way I see it more of, especially as in the so-called truth community, we've had, I know at least one channel, The Machine Lies, and he covers, the idea of stakeholder capitalism. And then a lot of that seems to be tied up in the recognition of these boom bust cycles. So it's a more active bust cycle. So some of this is to sort of manage the depressed aspects of the boom bust cycle, directly manage them. So if the government knows got used to things being lax, the industry in 20, a violation of hours of service would be considered a fairly big deal. And then I fucked up my log and I accidentally in the 14-hour window. I wasn't entirely. Like, oh yeah, no big deal. Which says something about how the attitudes have changed because he's choosing to operate his business based on he chose the software that the company uses for its driver logs based on it's not really it's way more difficult to pull shenanigans with this software versus there's software. And I think some of it, the government's already decertified it and said you can't even use that anymore. But some companies would intentionally pick their logs based on being able to remotely edit the logs and pull a bunch of shenanigans to operate outside the hours of service. But then, and I also see with some of these body cams coming out on these foreign drivers, because almost everybody has a tablet now, and the Qualcomm is pretty much a thing of the past. They've gotten used to just saying to the driver, well, hand me your tablet. And then the DOT people have gotten pretty lazy. And, they have a way to have the logs. They can have the logs emailed to them where they can go and on their own computer, they can inspect the logs, right? They can take 15 minutes and really look into what's going on. Versus now, the ones we have, if I violate, it just puts up a red exclamation point. So if I got inspected and I just handed over my tablet, there'd be a red. In fact, it's still there. It's there for 7 days. It's like a rolling 7-day log. So it would be obvious. So I think a lot of these, well, what does that do? Like that seems like it's better, except now when the very first time I got inspected in New York State back in 2018, the first thing the state trooper had me do was go into my Qualcomm, and he knew how to do it. So, I'd never done it. So finally he was just like, just here, let me have it. And he knew exactly what buttons to press, and I didn't give a fuck. I just wanted to be on my way. It was during the Blitz. And he went back to his car and spent about 15 minutes on his laptop, scrutinizing my logs. And then, of course, everything was fine. Well, now with the tablet, I think a lot of them have gotten used to just looking for that red exclamation point. Well, here's the thing is, if whoever operates the company is unethical and they know that they can hack the fucking logs, or if the driver knows to sort of that there's ways around ever making that red exclamation point show up, and now the DOT man's lazy and it's just like, oh, no red exclamation point, all good. It's like, nah, man, not really. And so now the owner of this company is like, well, no big deal, because he knows that as long as I'm not violating the 11 hours of driving, the fact is, the DOT probably doesn't give a fuck that I violated the 14 hours. And then the reality is, the ones who really have a stick up their ass, those are the ones who they're going to find something. And there's always something they can find. So at that point, it doesn't even really matter. It's just, am I going to piss them off with my personality enough where they're going to, instead of writing up one violation, they're going to write up every violation they can conceivably justify. It's like, well, in spite of the fact that I will fucking wig out and break my foot off in somebody's ass every once in a while, it's like, I'm probably not going to do that with the DOT man. Because that's, I'm trying to keep my record clean. That's how that typically goes. But anyway, we're 30 minutes out. I'm rambling. But yeah, to finish up on rates. So it's kind of a pretty lady, not my style, but she's, not ugly. And of course, you got the filters and all that, so who knows? But Eastern European type of broad, and with good English, of course. And she just doesn't understand markets well enough to realize. So she's kind of confused. So then now people are trying to blame the brokers, right? Because now the attitude seems to be, well, okay, there's way less foreign drivers on the road in the short term. And California appears to actually, they're about to cancel a bunch. They're actually going to cancel a bunch of CDLs, apparently, if that happens. So people are just assuming the rates are going to go up. It's like, yo, all of this crackdown absolutely can happen, and the rates can stay exactly where they are. Because what people don't want to face is, this is an economic, and even depression isn't the right way to think about it, in my opinion. But I'm talking about in the context of what the Great Depression probably was. But it's more of like a cyberpunk sort of, postmodern, affluent society version, whereas in 1920s, 20s and 30s America, people did sort of have to scramble, and it wasn't, it was just different. Getting access to food was just a different proposition. And people, I don't know, man, I'm sure some people are skipping meals even today, but I don't even want to get into that right now. But, in the context of economic depression, does that even really have a meaning? Because remember, the government won't even call it a recession. And the last time there was technically a recession, the government just chose not to recognize it as a recession, which I believe is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. I think that's how that is. And that apparently happened. But I think that, I don't even know, but I think that's it. Maybe 0 or negative. Maybe it's 0 or negative, possibly. But in an actual economic depression, like, why would the rates so-called recover? And because that means demand is down. So in an actual depression, the demand for trucking to haul goods is down. And that's what I see with my own 2 eyes. I see that demand is way down. So, so people are just assuming, oh, now the brokers are going to get desperate and the brokers are going to have to start paying more. It's like, well, not necessarily. Not if the brokers know how to communicate with their customers. That's their job, is to communicate with the customers. And if the brokers are communicating with the customers based on economic depression, and the customers are like, well, yeah, I mean, we're used to y'all's trucks coming in here and getting this freight out, but at the end of the day, our customers aren't really breaking our door down for our product in the first place. And so, maybe they're working out a deal where instead of bowing to the will of the trucks and the trucking companies who are going to attempt to demand, and this is again how markets work, they're attempting to demand a higher price. Well, if the brokers are able to maintain their relationships with the customers, not have the loads picked up, meaning if they post the load and then 9 hours later, the trucking company sees that, well, that load, whoever dispatches the trucks, the load gets posted. They want to haul the load because they got a truck in that area. They probably want or need to move the truck to the different area, right? But then they think, okay, now we got a desperate broker potentially. And they call up the broker and try to negotiate. The broker's like, hell no. The broker will give up $100 or whatever, but they're not giving up 500. And then 9 hours later, the load is still, nobody will haul the freight. Well, what does that tell you? That's the broker sending information through the market that we're not desperate to have this freight hauled. Because if they were desperate to have the freight hauled, that load wouldn't be on the fucking load board. So they're probably leveraging their relationship with their customer to extend out that window to what's the latest we can have this freight picked up. And then they're going to wait until it's late in that window, and then they're going to be, okay, now we're desperate broker. And then it's just kind of luck of the draw of whoever's truck is there, and does that person know how to negotiate well enough to take advantage of the so-called desperate broker. And half the time I can tell, like on a Friday or a Monday, they're dispatching me based on they're trying to find a desperate broker. But it's like, yeah, but you're assuming there's a desperate broker to be had. There may not be. So why do I got to sit around till noon when you finally accept, well, there's not a desperate broker today? But so now I have, because of inefficiencies and people not understanding markets, now I got to sit around half a day. And now I got to potentially stay up all night without sleep. Now I might be in fucking rush hour traffic in a major city because some human doesn't understand economics well enough to realize that they're probably not going to be able to find a desperate broker in this particular situation. Because surprise, surprise, with the winter weather coming, guess who on a Friday just perfectly dispatched me over the weekend without me having to wait around all day to get dispatched? See, because now they're not even thinking desperate broker. They're just thinking, hey, we got a winter storm hitting. We don't want Benton sitting all weekend. So let's go ahead and plan him out for the weekend, which is what they can do that anyway. See, and I know they can do that anyway. Oh, here's the dreaded traffic circle. See, I know they can do that. Right. So I know when I sit around till noon on a Friday or a Monday, it's because they think they're going to find a desperate broker. It's like, yeah, maybe not. And how much are y'all getting? Because hell, I got 100 on it. I'll pay 100 to not have to stay up all night and fucking maybe get trapped in fucking rush hour traffic in some major city. I might pay 100 to avoid that. Like how much are y'all really squeezing out of the broker at that point? And then again, remember the dispatcher works on commission, so they're highly incentivized. Indeed, they don't give a fuck if I sit around till noon and don't sleep. and end up in a traffic jam in Atlanta. What do they care? They don't give a fuck. Anyway, I'm out. Thanks for watching. Bye.